Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Donna Chow, and I'm your host and your moderator for today's eLotus webinar. Here at eLotus, we have been hosting educational courses for over 2 decades, and we are proud to be your trusted source for premium CU content with over 200 speakers, 700 courses, and 3,000 hours of continuing education. Today's webinar is Healing the Shen Fire, 5 Element Archetypes and 5 Spirits Acupuncture presented by David Hartman. This is the second of a 7-course series in which David will be giving a weekly webinar on the 5 Element Archetypes and 5 Spirits Acupuncture. To get the full benefit of the complete series, register for the upcoming live webinars or purchase the video recordings at a later time. Both options do include CEUs. Or even better, I recommend the Gold Pass membership, which allows you to see all of them for free, as well as receive unlimited CEUs and free herbs. All right, so before we begin, I'd like to go over a few items to familiarize you with our webinars and how they work. So today's webinar will run from 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, and we will have one break. The lecture notes are available for download, and you can find them directly on the course access page in your eLotus account. To use the webinar chat room, set your chat preference to everyone so that everyone can be part of the conversation and see what you're writing. By default, Zoom has it set to only the host and the speaker to see it. So that everyone can be part of the conversation. As I mentioned, just go ahead and set your chat to everyone. If you do have a question for David, please enter them into the Q&A box. And if time allows, he will go ahead and respond to them. But just keep in mind that our webinar today is just for a few hours. And finally, the quiz and the video replay. You will be notified by email tomorrow afternoon once they are available. All right, guys. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you David Hartman, a licensed Chinese medicine practitioner from Brisbane, Australia, who has been in practice since 1997. David is well known for his signature acupuncture point combinations, on which he has authored a textbook as well. David has given presentations at conferences and seminars all over the world. He's always researching and learning new things in the field of Chinese medicine and has a wealth of experience in the field. It is an honor to have him here with us today. So without further ado, David, please go ahead, take over, share your screen, and share your PowerPoint.
So much, Donna. Thank you, eLotus, for this opportunity again. Hopefully that's come up. I did need to just point out that, excuse me, I may have woken up with COVID, so this could be an interesting few hours, but I got up really early for a presentation I was doing. I work at Northern College of Acupuncture in York in England, and even though I live in Brisbane, I do some workshops for them, so I had an early morning one of those. So I'll go and get a COVID test later today. But so if I'm a bit croaky and I get a cough, I do apologize. I will mute myself and mute my video as well. But we'll power on, and hopefully it's not COVID and it's just a flu, and it's not some other disease that's not even been invented yet. And we will continue on. So again, thank you all for coming. It's lovely to see a good audience here. It's something I'm really excited about teaching. And where the last talk that we did around about a month ago was sort of looking more at the history of it, now we're really starting to get into the nuts and bolts of it. And we're going to spend a lot of time each week looking at each of the archetypes and the individual spirits associated with them. And it's been a wonderful opportunity that eLotus has given me to be able to just to spend the time I feel you need to really immerse yourself in each of the archetypes. So just a little quote here. Serenus was a friend of Seneca's. Seneca was a Roman senator and a philosopher a whiles back. You can see there 4 BCE to 65. And his friend Serenus said to him, "When I looked into myself, Seneca, all of my vices appeared clearly on the surface so that I could lay my hand on them. Some were more hidden away in the depths. Some were not there all the time, but return at intervals. These last, I would say, are the most troublesome. They are like prowling enemies who pounce on you when occasion offers, and allow you neither to be at the ready as in war, nor at ease as in peace. However, the state I most find myself in, for why should I not admit the truth to you as to a doctor, is that I am not really free of the vices which I feared and hated, though not, on the other hand, subject to them. This puts me in a condition which is not the worst, but an extremely peevish and quarrelsome one. I am neither ill nor well. This is just a spectacular little philosophical quote there. And I think it ties in perfectly with what we're doing in this course. We're getting people to understand more about who they are as a person, the good stuff, the not so good stuff, the hidden away stuff, the perfectly clear stuff. It's really a perfect opportunity for someone like Serenus to embrace who he is a little bit more and understand himself better, because that's the basic premise of it, is that we understand ourselves better. But then the great thing about it is that we can also take that a step further and understand our patients more, understands our friends and family more. If you know what your patient's archetype is, you can change the way that you communicate with them, so that the patient sits there and goes, wow, David really knows who I am, like who I am as a person. He really gets me. And then you've got them then. It might seem too simple, but really, if you speak their language and you talk to them the way that they understand, they really will get you. So today we're going to talk about the Shen and the Fire archetype. So we're going to split them up into individual components and break down what each of them, how they represent themselves in the body as well. But knowing that collectively, the two of them are together as a team, and they're part of the fire element, which is also part of heart, pericardium, small intestine, and Sanjiao or triple energizer. So the first part will be the fire element archetype, and then the second part will be the Shén Spirit. So for those that were here a month ago, we did do a few little questions. I did a fun little poll about your Aussie name, which I'm not doing this time, I'm sorry. Partly, I don't want to be laughing too much because I'll probably have a coughing fit, but some of you have been putting where you're from, and I appreciate you doing that in the chat. I noticed there were a lot of people from America. There was some Canadians. Oh, Kansas. I might be in Kansas City actually in August. There was someone from Sydney, which is awesome. So if you haven't put down where you're from, if you could put that down in the chat. I think Donna likes you to do that anyway, so that she can tick you off as a part of your attendance. BC, Canada, thank you all. Cool. And while you're at it, maybe you could write down how long you've been in practice for, please. So I know a little bit more about what my audience... Sweden. There we go. I'm also in Sweden later in the year, but Hannah knows this already. 24 years practice. Lovely. 9 years. Thank you. 20 years, 7. Okay. Thank you, Donna. 11 years. So a bit of a mix. 2 years. Yep. Fresh. Love it. Third year of study. Fantastic. 35 years. I think that beats me. I've been practicing since 1997, but I started studying in 1993. Since 1997. Angela and I are the same. First year of practicing, lovely. Yeah, thank you. And what I wanted to do is also just give you a quick rundown of the poll results from the first workshop if you weren't here. So I'll bring that up. So Brisbane is a lovely city, and I'm very happy living here, and that's obviously a very good, beautiful image. Practicing since 97, started studying in 93. So based on the archetype question we asked at the end of the first workshop, obviously that's a little bit hard to judge because not all of you have done an archetype course. So the one we're doing today is fire, and different titles for fire: a magician, salesperson, entertainer, wizard, shaman. There's lots of different names, and we'll look at additional ones as well. The salesperson is often the one that's used, but it sometimes comes up with a bit of a negative connotation, I guess. It's not that I guess the best way to look at it is that you're someone that is passionate about what you believe in, and that without even meaning to, you are selling that passion to other people. So you're just a really passionate person. And theoretically, if you're a good fire archetype, then you do a good job with that passion. You sell what you're speaking. So for me, I'm a fire archetype, and might be a little bit down on the fire today thanks to this cold or flu, but I can't help myself. I'm not selling something to you that you'll buy. I'm just selling you something that I'm passionate about. So I might have seen a good movie the other day, and then I'll say, hey, Angela, have you seen this movie the other day? It was fantastic. I really loved it. And hopefully my passion kind of comes across. And then Angela goes, oh, geez, I probably should go watch that movie. I didn't, as a fire archetype, get any benefit from that at all. I didn't get any additional income from it. It's just something that fire archetypes inherently kind of have to do. They are excited about the life they're living and really interesting things that happen. They want to tell people about it. It does make them very good salespeople too, especially if they believe in the product that they're selling. So based on the statistics from the first workshop, we had around about 14 people out of 130 that thought they might be fire. Now, obviously, you can see there across the participant list that it was fairly even. Across the board, Earth was a lot more dominant, but there was still a quarter of you that weren't sure if you're a mix or you weren't really sure what you were. And I think probably the remaining 70-odd% probably still aren't 100% sure, unless, as I said, you've done a workshop like this or you've read archetype books and you've got a better sense of who you are. So what the plan is that over the coming workshops and later today is after we've gone through the fire archetype, I'm going to see out of what we got 148 people, how many of you think that you're fire? And again, you don't have to lock that in. I'm just going to write the number down and get a percentage. And then on our 7th workshop, we will look at those stats again and we will review what you think you are. So if you thought you might be fire today, by the time we go through the next 5 to 6 weeks, you'll look at all the other ones, and then we'll meet up again in that last workshop and you'll decide, am I fire or am I something else? Or in that final workshop, we also look at your support act, your second in charge, I guess, archetype as well, and look to see which one of those you are. So you get a more rounded sense of how you look at the world. So we'll make a note of that and I'll come back to that later. So APC comes up a lot in the notes, and it's simply acupuncture point combination, which for those that understand that about me, it's basically the point prescription or the treatment that I've constructed. And I like to give it that name because it makes it more like a Chinese herbal formula, where you're choosing herbs to do specific jobs in order for the formula to work together as a team. And that's what I want the acupuncture point combination to do as well, to work together as a team. So a note on the point combination. So a number of textbooks, workshops, conferences, Chinese medicine peers are responsible for the point combinations presented in this workshop. So they're not exclusively my own necessarily. Some of them are. Some of them are in my 2 published texts, which I will quickly discuss at the end if we've got time. And then also my nearly 30 years of clinical experience also contributes to the APCs. I consider student clinic, of which I was a part of for a number of years as being part of my clinical experience. And so in reality, I've been treating patients since 1994, but I graduated at the end of 96. Also, understanding the condition from a Western perspective also plays a part. So even though we're talking about Chinese archetypes that are more philosophical, they all have signs and symptoms associated with them that can be perceived as good or bad. People can have difficulties with certain things. They have loves for certain things. There's characteristics that define them. And within all of those, the Western labels, if you understand them more, you understand the archetype more, which means that you can also construct point combinations. And then obviously each patient is unique, so the APCs constructed may need to be tweaked slightly. And you also may want to tweak it slightly because there might be points in the list that you don't use, either because you don't like them or you don't know how to needle them or whatever other reason. And so in that case, leave it out or sub in a different point. And it'll come down to your preference for the number of needles that you use in a treatment. So most of the point combinations will be between 8 to 16 needles in total. So I say needles rather than points because I want to make sure you understand that's the total number of needles that were inserted in the body. Because what I don't want is for you to go, oh, he said points. Does he mean bilateral, unilateral? What's David saying? So it's mostly bilateral and it's the total number of needles. So most of the point combinations will be 8 to 16. So if you use less than that, you need to constructively look at what you've got there and leave some out. Or if you add more, or if you like to do more than 16, look at the combination. And again, use your experience to look at what you could add in to more holistically round out your type of treatment that you do. You can always use the heart, Shen, and pericardium for regulating archetypes, spirits, and emotions. So you'll see them used a lot in the workshop. If this was a workshop on digestive disorders and bowel problems, then there wouldn't be a lot of heart, Shen, and pericardium based points in that workshop. But because this is very much geared around emotions, mental health, our genetic makeup as a personality type, the heart, Shen, and pericardium or Shin Bao are very, very important. So they will come up quite a bit. And there is a dedicated section to both of these in this workshop. In future workshops, if you're attending those, the heart, Shen, and pericardium are not discussed again individually, but they'll still be used a lot. So you can always come back to this set of handouts to remind yourself of anything that you might have forgotten. All right, the fire archetype. Everything is irrelevant but this: to embrace life, to feel it, to savor it, to love it. Absolutely bang on the money for a fire element archetype. If that sentence for you just ticks all the boxes, then you might already be well on your way to I guess, self-diagnosing yourself as being a fire archetype. And the fire archetype does it in the present moment. So even though I'm not feeling 100%, and I really hope I don't have COVID, it's 7:20 on what is it today for me? A Wednesday. And this is where I want to be. I couldn't think of anywhere else I'd rather be. And that's what a fire archetype is like. They will get to later on and they will think back to the past at some other point. It's not relevant right now. What's relevant is right now. So the content for the archetypes, we're going to look at other names that they're known as. We're going to look at yin and yang relationships. We're going to look at emotions and the Wu Shen or five spirit relationship, the characteristics of the fire archetype, what they love, what they fear. You got to own this stuff. All archetypes are not designed to be perfect humans. We all have things that we can gravitate towards both good and bad. You know, fire archetype can be so fanatically interested in the now and the joy they get from it that the joy overrides everything in their life, when joy is not supposed to be an emotion that we're in all the time. We're supposed to be in it sometimes, but really the reality is that probably the closest terms that you could describe that are emotions that are ones you can stay in regularly are balance, harmony, at peace, contentment, not joy. Joy is the most yang emotion we have. It can lead to mania, it can lead to bipolar, it can lead to manic joy, so harmless mania, or harmful psychotic behavior. So for a fire archetype, they've got to be conscious of wanting to be in joy all the time. And the same thing applies for all of the archetypes. For wood archetype, anger is an emotion that they use to achieve a lot. And so it's not a negative emotion in terms of the drive they get off that yang-based emotion. It propels them into action. If they're in anger all the time, even when other emotions are appropriate, then that's where the balance point tips. And so that's what we look at. Every aspect of an archetype, the goods and the bads. We look at difficulties associated with the archetypes, what the excess signs and symptoms are likely to be, what the deficiency ones are. If you are able to diagnose the archetype, but you can't decide if it's excess or deficient, which can happen, then there is a regulating or balancing treatment that we will provide you as well. And then how you talk to a fire archetype patient or a fire archetype friend or family member. And point combinations are included throughout. The first workshop was more the grounding. Now we really hit. Over this next 6 workshops, you're going to get over 100 different point combinations that you can use in clinic tomorrow if it applies to that patient. Also, the main reference points that I've used for the 5 element archetypes, and of which there's dozens and dozens, are those ones. I have a chapter on the archetypes in my book, and a chapter on the 5 spirits. The Beanfield and Corngold, Between Heaven and Earth, the entire book is on the 5 element archetypes. Hicks and Mole one is 5 elements in general, but they include archetypes. Darlin and Davidson talk about the archetypes exclusively, and Fran Glenn has a number of 5 element and 5 archetype books. That particular one is a bit more of an overview of it. So what we do basically is we look at the different aspects of the archetype, and I give you a little quote, tons and tons of quotes, because the quotes give you a better sense about the archetype. So this one, the Beanfield and Corngold call the fire archetype the wizard. So enchanting and persuasive, the wizard is a natural salesman, selling not so much the product itself as the experience of possessing an instrument of magic, a veritable talisman that endows us with the power to transcend our ordinary existence. The magic, however, is in the wizard, not in the merchandise. So hopefully I do a good job of selling to you this 3-hour workshop, because that's my job as a fire archetype, to adequately excite you about what a fire archetype is. Not so that you'll be one if you're not. It's more about just exciting you about what the next 2.5 odd hours are for you on a lovely afternoon, presumably. That's the design of it. That's what a fire archetype does. They excite and inspire people. So they're also known as the magician, salesperson, wizard, shaman, and optimist. They are very optimistic people, and that's not saying that the other 4 archetypes aren't as well. They're unconditional lovers. They can be quite comedic. and they're entertainers or life of the party. They are having a good time, so they want everyone else in the room to have a good time as well. Their yin and yang organs, as you're probably aware, a fire element, yin organs are heart and pericardium, and the yang is small intestine and sanjiao. And having a little look at what they represent from that original Yellow Emperor's classic, the Huangdi Neijing Su Wen. So the heart, first, the heart is the sovereign of all organs and represents the consciousness of one's being. It is responsible for intelligence, wisdom, and spiritual transformation. So we need to always consider the heart, and obviously the heart houses the Shen, as being very important when we talk about all of the archetypes, not just fire. The pericardium is like the court jester who makes the king laugh, bringing forth joy. That is not the only thing that the pericardium does, in the same way that the heart doesn't just do the things on the previous slide. The heart is your emperor. It's an organ that governs and looks after all the other organs. That in itself could be an entire 3-hour conversation. The pericardium is a court jester, but the pericardium is more than that, and we will spend time talking about the pericardium a little later. And it comes down to more its pinyin Chinese name, Xinbao, gives you a better sense of what it's doing. But it certainly is a court jester. The design behind that is that the heart has a big day at work, and, you know, he just wants to chill. And I do say he because there weren't any Chinese women emperors in history. Well, there was one, but she kind of ruled from behind a screen with a puppet son. But anyway, point being is that the emperor has had a big day at work, and they want to chill, and they want to feel joy and contentment, harmony, peace. And so they go, court jester, come out, make me laugh. And they come out, entertain them. They feel at peace and at harmony and at balance. They get a good night's sleep, and they go out and rule their empire again. But the pericardium is more. The small intestine receives the food that has been digested by the spleen and stomach and further extracts, absorbs, and distributes it throughout the body, all the while separating the pure from the turbid. So pure, impure. That we spend more time talking about what that means from a esoteric or more spiritual perspective a little later in the slides as well. And the sanjiao, or the 3 visceral cavities, promotes the transformation and transportation of water and fluids throughout the body. That is another, is it misnomer? It's not the only thing it does. The sanjiao regulates water, but it also regulates fire. What's the old names for sanjiao? Triple heater, triple warmer, triple burner. So the sanjiao is all of your organs together, which is all of your yin and all of your yang. So it regulates all of your yin and yang, regulates all your fire and water. So the sanjiao is a lot more than just involved with fluid distribution and transformation and transportation. The emotions associated with the fire archetype are more in line with things like anxiety, joy that's harmless to a point. Harmless joy can still be something that can be quite manic and dangerous, but not through any intentional desire to hurt someone. Example, back when I was a teenager, we were out on the town, and I didn't know anything about archetypes then because I was still in school. And this guy, one of my friends, we'd had a few beers, and he grabbed me and he gave me a big hug, and then he lifted me up, and then he lifted me up so high that he lost balance, and then I fell over the top of his head and landed on my head. And he was just having a heck of a lot of fun, and he wasn't trying to hurt me, but that could have caused a lot of damage. And I know some of my friends these days joke about that that's caused some sort of brain damage in my brain. Thanks, mates. But the reality is that nothing happened, but it could have. So there is some of that harmless joy that can still cause issues. And then, of course, there's that manic, psychotic type behavior that obviously can. It can lead to bipolar, manic depression, the Dian Quang. So the Dian is the depression side of it, and the Quang is the mania. So they are like yin and yang. They can't be mutually exclusive. So you only get diagnosed as Dian Quang if you're a bipolar. Fire archetype can lead to quite severe depression, even suicidal depression, or just more basic level depression. Might even just be depression that they're in for a little bit and then they drive out of it and they're back into that joy and balance and harmony. Sadness can be there, stress can be a big one, and shock hurts the fire archetype pretty badly, and the water archetype pretty badly, and to a lesser extent the wood archetype, because that scattering the chi hurts the liver, moving the chi around. So shock's not just one element or one archetype. The Shen is usually translated as spirit. That's my preference. It can be translated as soul. Giovanni likes to translate it as mind. And he does go into detail in his books as to why he prefers that word. And then also some people translate Shen as your brain, because your Shen, even though it's housed in the heart, it's still actually, for what the brain does, from a Western perspective, the Shen is housed in the brain as well. And that's not a modern take on that. Sun Si Miao had a view that the brain and the heart house the Shen. Li Shi Jian, who wrote the 8 Extraordinary Vessels book in the 1500s, he had a similar view. So some pretty famous acupuncturists from a long time ago have had a similar view. You may be a fire if you try to cram everything into one day and you never have enough time to do it all or see all the people you want to see. Does joy immediately propel you into clarity and inner calm? Do you feel optimistic when you wake up in the morning, ready to live life and take every moment as it comes? Are you someone who needs to be around others to bring you back to your center? Are you a person who understands pain but feels there is enough joy to not have to dwell on the pain? If you are smiling to yourself, laughing and nodding, then you are most likely a fire. A couple of things in there are really interesting for me, in that one of the difficulties that a fire archetype can have is insomnia. And that is an on-off kind of issue for me, and has been ever since I can ever remember being alive. And yet I still almost always wake up in the morning with a glass half full optimistic attitude. And the people around me sometimes are quite astounded by that. And this belief that I'll have a better sleep tonight. It's always this belief that things will be better than they are, even if they're not. It's a glass half full approach to life. And fire people love being around others. So let me just check my sheet, see how I'm going for time. I'm doing well. Now, here's the thing. For those of you that have ever been to live conferences, live workshops, online workshops, PowerPoints, whatever people use, what does my wife use? OneNote, I think, whatever it is. You get PowerPoints or you get a slide presentation, and everyone does it a bit different. Some people put lots of colorful pictures. Some people have phasing in and out and all the rest of it. I don't really know how to do any of that. I'm hoping the content is what sells the product. And for me, the way I'm constructing these 7 workshops in a row is a bit like you're getting a PowerPoint presentation at a workshop where you get little snapshots. You can see some slides didn't have many things in them, but you're also getting stuff that's almost like a textbook. So, I mean, how good is that for value for money? You are essentially getting, by the end of these 7, you're getting handouts that are almost like you've got yourself a textbook on the 5 element archetypes and the 5 spirits, and acupuncture point combinations for over 100 different conditions. So what I try to do is perhaps give you more than you need. But if I was a participant right now and I'm looking at this and I'm listening to David talking, I'd be very, very happy, because I can always come back to this stuff at another time and look at it, and I can put it in my clinic folder and really embrace the information that's there. So basically, you can see how wordy this slide is. Every single word we're not going to necessarily go through, but it's still stuff that you can have at a later time, and I hope that you're okay with that. So the characteristics of a fire archetype is they're excited, lively, enthusiastic. They fling their arms around. They're enjoying the experience that they're in. They can be quite persuasive, which makes them exceptional salespeople. They do take pleasure in achieving goals. They do get an adrenaline kick. Adrenaline is a fire archetype's friend. One of the coolest movies I saw years ago, see, I'm doing it now, Fire Archetype, I'm selling a movie, was a movie called Crank. And the guy was dying of a Chinese drug that was put into him, and he needed to keep his adrenaline up so he could stay alive to see his doctor. And it was an hour and a half of just on. It was just go, go, go. It was an hour and a half where you're like gripping the chair. It was just so full on. It was such an entertaining hour and a half. And that for me is what a fire archetype can be like, both within the balance point, but also when it starts to get a little bit out of control. But that's the adrenaline that sometimes pushes them into the unhealthy side of things. And in that movie, he needed to keep taking substances to stimulate his adrenaline. So in terms of achieving goals, a fire archetype feels really good when they do. They get a nice little adrenaline kick. They are very talented communicators. They can be spontaneous. If it's just the way things are rolling. Other archetypes might want a bit more time before they just jump into something. And I'm not saying a fire archetype doesn't plan things out sometimes, because they do. But they can be very spontaneous, especially if they're jumping from a joy to a joy to a joy. Things can happen very quick. They just go with it. Happy and hearty, emotionally balanced. I mean, how funny is that? I'm a fire archetype and my name's David Hartman. Happy and hearty. Emotionally balanced for the most part. Enjoy life's ups, but not the downs. And that's where there can be problems, because sometimes you need the down just to acknowledge what that feels like and to have a break before you go back out again. They're eternal optimists. They're passionate, compassionate, empathetic. So fire archetypes can show a lot of empathy. Probably the earth archetype are the ones that you would class as being like the empath, but fire archetypes do recognize empathy. They saturate normal with phenomenal. Alert, mentally clear, aware, well-oriented, focused, and can be quite intuitive. Can be devoted, enchanting, charismatic, seductive, flirtatious. Even if they have no interest in the person that they're flirting with, it's just a bit of harmless, joyful fun, which of course can get you into a bit of trouble. Very intimate, tender, and passionate. They do want to have the perfect lover. They do want to have that perfect relationship with a loved one and loved ones. And their characteristics are that they typically have a good memory. They're consciously there, as opposed to being a bit vague or semi-conscious, that sort of thing. The sleeping thing can be a bit of an issue, even though theoretically having a strong Shen means that you will sleep better. Thinking's very good, and balanced out emotions. Fire is the dancing energy inside you that craves fun, excitement, entertainment, romance, and intimacy. The two archetypes that most want to be around other people. Some of the stuff's a bit of a generalization, but it's designed, to get a better sense of how they all operate in day-to-day life. So fire and earth archetypes most want to be around other people. Fire because they love being around other people, they love having fun and hoping that everyone else is having fun. Earth want to be around other people because they want to save the world, save everyone, one person at a time. Wood archetypes are happy to be around other people, but they also love to do things solo. And metal and water are happy enough to be around people, but will tend to be less inclined to be that way than fire and earth. And when they do choose to be around people, they'll be around people they really want to hang around with, as opposed to a fire archetype. When I go overseas to present workshops and things like that, if I go down to, after I've done my workshop, I might go down to the bar and watch whatever sport's on the telly and have a couple of beers. I'll start talking to complete strangers. That's just what I do. And whereas a metal or a water archetype are much less inclined to do that, they would want to go down and talk to people that they know, that are like peers, that they can learn from and give information back to. Fire archetype loves the pleasure, intimacy, romance, being in love, seeking excitement and joy, performing for others, the touch, sensation, feeling. If you've got a fire archetype patient, they like the touch. So doing a bit of massage on a fire archetype patient, they'll love you for life. Even if you're an acupuncturist, if you know a little bit about massage, tuina, whatever, just a little bit of touch sensation. Even when you're putting the needles in, being a little bit more in their personal space. Maybe you've got your hand on their knee while you're needling spleen 9. It's the connection and the feeling. They love living in the now. They do love to say yes, which can be problematic. Grandiosity, the drama, adrenaline, and seeking the divine. They do want to have a sense of the bigger picture. They're quite comfortable if they've decided that there isn't a bigger picture and that, they're an atheist. They're okay with that, but they want a sense of what's going on in the world, understand who they are in the world, why they're in the world, but they do it out in the world. Water archetypes do that too, but they do it more at home, more in a quiet space where they do their own internal research to get a sense of all of that. Whereas fire out in the world working it out. People with a healthy fire element are able to give and receive love with appropriate degrees of emotional closeness. This enables them to cope with a wide range of differing relationships and to appreciate how and when to open up or close down to other people. What do fire archetypes fear, though? And you can get a sense of this already based on what we've said. They fear separation, being bored, dullness, pain, inactivity, downtime, being cut off from others, disillusion. A fire archetype that does everything to avoid boredom will have something entertaining in every part of their house. So my brother's also a fire archetype as part of his makeup, and he actually sells insurance. He he doesn't know the off switch. And so when he gets home from work, no matter what room he goes into in the house, there's something entertaining there. A PlayStation machine, a Nintendo machine, a TV to watch movies, a ping pong table, a pool, like you name it. There's something in every room. He even had a fridge at one point that had a TV on it. And it's go, 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 go. And there's no off. And then about once a year, he collapses, gets a really bad cold or flu. And that's his body saying, dude, you need a break. And then he's out of it for a few days, and then he's back and he's go, 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 go again. Fire archetypes fear being overwhelmed by intensity. They dread what the future might hold. And that's when they're falling off their balance point, because when they're healthy, they only care about the present moment. Not really interested in conservative, ordinary, or mundane. Boundaries is an interesting one. They respect other people's boundaries, and they respect rules that the government gives us and the police give us. So it's not so much that. It's just that sometimes when they get into such a state of euphoric joy and entertainment, they might start to push things a little bit. They fear confusion because they have a very mentally alert brain, as do all 5 of the archetypes, to be fair. And they do like the known. They're less inclined to like unknown stuff. But again, that's, often falling off the balance point as well.